This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles. Man, oh man, this offseason, Greg, it has been crazy. It's been bananas. It reminds me of the NBA. A lot happening in the NFL. Let's start with the breaking news this morning from Adam Schefter. Tyreek Hill is on the trading block. It sounds like the Dolphins and the Jets are both involved. He's likely to land with one of those two teams. Your reaction to this news?
Well, I have a few different reactions. Number one, from the Chiefs' perspective, I'm not all that surprised. I have been surprised on sort of like their level of faith in Tyreek Hill, I guess is how I would term it, Nick, in terms of a guy who had major red flags coming out of college. There was the domestic violence incident that was very, very serious that sent him tumbling down a lot of draft boards, probably took him off a lot of draft boards in the NFL. And of course, you don't hear much about that anymore because he's uber talented and makes humongous plays, and he helped win a Super Bowl. And look, I'm all for redemption stories. We've seen it time and time again. We've seen it with the Patriots have, had some guys with questionable backgrounds on their team, and it's worked out. So, I get it. But Tyreek Hill, I could tell you just from limited personal experience, Nick, being around him in some locker rooms, how do I term this? There's always guys in every locker room, and I give the Patriots credit. There haven't been a ton of guys in the Patriots locker room that I got this feeling from, but there's always guys throughout my career, and I've been covering NFL locker rooms for 20 years, where the vibe you get from the guy, the reactions that you see from some of the guys, that you're just like, I don't know about this guy. I don't trust him. I don't like him. I have questions about his future, and Tyreek Hill is one of those guys for me, has been in my locker room interactions. I don't want to get into specifics, but when I'm in locker rooms, I sort of, back when we were in locker rooms, I sort of sometimes I like to sit back and observe players, and when coaches walk through and things like that. And there have seen things I've seen out of Tyreek Hill in terms of his reactions to, let's say, certain media members that have made me, question his maturity at times. And so to me, I think for the Chiefs, it's a combination of that. How much do I want to be tied to a guy who I still have questions about off the field? Right. That could sink a franchise very easily. We saw what happened with, Michael Vick and the Falcons. But also, look, we have a talented team. We have Patrick Mahomes. We have Travis Kelce. We have, we just paid Joe Thuney. We're paying other guys. I think they franchised the left tackle. There's some defense. Frank Clark is another guy iffy off the field that they paid. We can't go to the top of the market with everybody. We can't. I mean, and the guys that we are going to go to top of the market, if all of a sudden Tyreek Hill and the reports are he's looking for Davante Adams type money, you combine those factors, and to me, it's all right. Well, let's explore trade then. Yeah. Let's try to, if we can get something, maybe we move on, we recalibrate things like that. Maybe Tyreek is just a guy that we're not sure whether we can have a future with for a variety of reasons.
The wide receiver position seems like something that the NFL is having an issue addressing as far as value goes. And you see what happens with Davante Adams, how much money he was paid. He goes for a first and a second. This deal is going to be huge as far as assets and money. And it comes down to, the cost of a receiver and the importance to the team, because as we've seen the last three drafts now, wide receiver has been a very deep position. So you can find guys who can be your number one and not pay them like this. Marquez Valdes-Scantling sounds like that might be the plan for Kansas City. To go from Tyreek Hill to MVS is a huge, significant drop. And I think it's interesting to see how this offense is going to change for KC. the cap is crap crowd takes a hit here because you just can't pay everybody, as you said, Greg, at the top of the mountain. You just can't do it. And it's interesting, a couple of years ago, after they won the Super Bowl, Tyreek Hill was talking about 7 rings. I think this is a reminder of how difficult it is to sustain a Super Bowl window. Guys get paid. Guys want to get paid. And the final connection here, Greg, the AFC East for the Patriots, he's going to go to either reportedly Dolphins or the Jets. It gets tougher for them.
Yeah, Nick, you bring up a really good point, and it's sort of Patriots related. So, let's discuss it a little bit. I understand the cap is crap crowd. I understand that. And I do think, probably my main criticism of the Patriots this offseason is I understand more than anybody that the reason for their sustained success over 20 years, a large part of it was Tom Brady. And we don't know whether the same financial plan that worked with Tom Brady is going to work with Mac Jones or any other quarterback. But, the Patriots, this is one thing you can't question. And you could debate how much of it was Tom Brady. And there are some people who just go, oh, it was all Tom Brady. But their ability year in and year out to be contenders over 20 years is just unmatched. Yep. And, a large part of that, I think, was Tom Brady. A large part of it, I do think, was their financial responsibility in terms of, nobody made a huge amount of money and they kept the middle class, pretty big and things like that. But, I do think that, and the flip side of that is, you could do what a lot of teams are doing right now, like say the Raiders and Chiefs and, the Saints are a great example because they're up against it right now, is you could push out cap into the future years, but the bill's going to come due. And you might be a Super Bowl contender or winner for a season or two, but at some point you're going to go down. And the Patriots never really went down during that 20 years. And so, it'll be proven whether it was Tom Brady was the difference or was it a mixture of everything. I think it was a mixture of everything. But I do think that the Patriots, I wish they would thread the needle a little bit more. It seems like Belichick is either huge one way or huge the other way. Like last year we saw them spend freely because they had an advantage. Now we're not going to spend anything. Well, knowing that the cap is going to increase coming in future years with the TV deals and the streaming deals and things like that, you could push a little bit of cap out, right, and sign a few more guys. That's my main criticism of them. But I agree with you that there is a limit. And in people who think that there isn't, they're just not talking about reality. And closer to home, the AFC East. Yeah, I mean, look, the Dolphins added Teron Armstead the other day, the left tackle.
Let me stop you right there because we have the breaking news here as we do this. Tyreek Hill's a Dolphin, Greg. Adam Schefter tweets, listen to this, 5 draft picks, my friend. Hill goes to Miami. Miami gives up their first-round pick this year, a second-round pick this year, that's number 29 and number 50, a fourth-round pick this year, as well as 4th and 6th round picks in next year's draft. So Tyreek Hill goes to Miami for a first, a second, a 4th this year, and a 4th and 6th next year. Your immediate reaction to that deal, Greg?
My immediate reaction is the Dolphins are going to be tough to defend this year. And look, it's all going to come down to Tua, and I think Tua is better than, say, the conventional wisdom, or at least from, a lot of Patriots fans I've heard from, is that they think Tua's garbage. Well, he's beaten you, I think, in all 3 starts that he's had against you. And I think that, they already have Devontae Parker. They signed Cedric Wilson on the offseason. I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Cedric Wilson. Whew. That is quite the trio. And,
Speed and more speed.
Yeah, and the Patriots right now, have, Jonathan Jones coming back from injury. They have Jalen Waddle at cornerback, and they have Terrence Mitchell at the moment, and Miles Bryant. They're probably going to have to put a bunch of multiple defensive backs on the field. But again, it seems like the theme of this offseason, Nick, has been the AFC just keeps getting more and more difficult. And, that was something that we were going to talk about, and we will talk about a little bit more in depth. But, man, this is no longer your uncle's AFC East, where you could pencil in the Patriots just to win the division pretty easily. It's wow.
And let's not forget that number 29 pick, by the way, is from San Francisco in the Trey Lance deal. So Miami still has a pick in the first round. So let's not forget about that. Kansas City, look, that's a haul. I mean, that is, to get 5 or 6 picks for a wide receiver, even though it's Tyreek Hill. I would not be surprised if the Chiefs jump into the draft here with a couple of first-round picks and draft a wide receiver. Chris Olave is out there. Jamison Williams might be a guy who can fit that spot that Tyreek Hill's had. So, you look at the draft compensation, OBJ is still out there. I would not be shocked if OBJ says, oh, wait, I could go be the number 1 receiver with Patrick Mahomes when I come off of ACL. So I think it's a haul for Miami. This is all for Tua. And, if Tua can't make this work, then he's donezo in Miami. Let's jump to some Patriot stuff. Trent Brown, he's back. What's it mean for the offensive line, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this was a must. I think it gives them more options. I mean, as of right now, you're looking at Isaiah Wynn at left tackle. You're looking at an assortment of people and possible draft pick at left guard or right guard. It depends. I'm just going to go with left guard as the open spot right now. They had Ryan Bates from the Bills, who is a restricted free agent, who, I think is a good, decent player. I thought that last year I was impressed with his film at the end of the year. He got a chance to start at left guard for the Bills when John Feliciano was out. And I thought the Bills were better with Bates in the lineup. Bates is basically a younger, maybe slightly better version of Ted Karras in that he could play guard and center. And, is a solid player. It'll be interesting to see if the Patriots, if they do sign him to an offer sheet, you're probably going to have to front load it. We've been down this road before, Nick, with the Patriots in terms of restricted free agent offers. Remember when they signed Emmanuel Sanders to an offer when he was sort of an up-and-coming guy from the Steelers, and you're like, oh, awesome. I mean, okay, this is great. And then we saw the offer sheet, and it was easy for the Steelers to match, and the Steelers were up against the cap at the time. It was like, dude, it's not that hard to construct a contract where the Steelers can't match, and the Patriots just whiffed on it. The Steelers ended up matching. Sanders went back, and they never got that type of guy. So you hope if they're aggressive that they at least put together a tough offer for them to match. You have Andrews at center. This would put Owenu at one of the guard spots. I would think he's a right guard. You put Owenu and Trent Brown together. I do really like how the Patriots this time around, I thought they overextended for Trent Brown last year. I think he had, basically like $7.5 million guaranteed, and it was a contract basically if he hit all incentives was $9 million. This year it's a 2-year deal with only like $4.5 million guaranteed total. So that's good because we saw they got half a season from him. I thought that internally they thought that he declined a bit down the stretch, but look, the contract is constructed that he gets paid the better he plays. So, I think it helps the Patriots. I don't think it was mandatory. I would have been fine, with a Justin Herron or Yadni Kajus or something like that. But, okay. I mean, good. I think they're better with Trent Brown. Now they only have one open spot. They can get that from the draft or try out their internal guys and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you don't want to lose Mason and Brown. A lot of holes to fill up front. The contract, I love it, protects the Patriots, and it gives Brown that carrot dangling in front of him. So I think the offensive line is better with Brown in the mix, and I do think they'll continue to add up front. Would not be surprised by that at all. By the way, some quick notes on this Tyreek Hill trade. The Dolphins now will not pick until I think it's 102. They won't pick until 102 overall after this trade. So they're going to be very quiet on draft night. Also, we have the contract figures, Greg, for Tyreek Hill. 4 years, $120 million, $30 million average annual value. $72.2 million guaranteed.
Wow.
He gets $72 million guaranteed, which I think is $5 million more than what Davante Adams got. I think Davante got $67 million guaranteed. So, I mean, the Dolphins are paying huge in assets.
A lot of risk. A lot of risk.
Assets and draft picks. And I appreciate you bringing up his past because I think people overlook that. Tyreek Hill away from the field has not been a good guy. Let's just call it the way it is. So we'll see what happens. And that's recently, too, not just his college days.
And now he's going to be in South Beach.
Yep, South Beach with $72 million guaranteed. Let's talk about Lenny Fournette quickly here, Greg. He visited New England. He went back to Tampa. What'd you make of that story?
I thought it was a pure leverage play on both parts, both Fournette and also the Patriots. And I think that, Fournette is represented by Kim Miele, who's a Rhode Island native, big Patriots fan, sort of an up-and-comer for Jay-Z's outfit, Rock Nation. She's done good work. She's young and really up-and-coming. Wouldn't surprise me if she has a bit of a relationship with the Patriots and said, hey, can you help me out and create a little bit of leverage for my guy? Because the Bucs probably said, they were probably, and, all of a sudden you go and visit the Patriots, which would be a sort of a button to push with the Bucs, with Brady and also Jason Light, who used to be here, and be like, Brady was probably a little irritated, GM Tom Brady, and probably got on the phone with Jason Light, just like, dude, just get the deal done. I won't even ask for more money or something like that. So he got what he wanted. I do think that the Patriots were sort of welcome this because if you noticed, Damien Harris is in a contract year. And this is not to say they're not happy with Damien Harris. I think they love Damien Harris. And I think they would love to have him and Ramondre Stevenson here for a very long time. But Ramondre Stevenson last year looked like a burgeoning star. That the second half of the year, in my opinion and in my ratings, he was the best back that they had. And he looks like he's going to be a star and could be the starter this year. And you would love to have Damien Harris around. But there's probably a limit to how far the Patriots want to go in re-signing a running back. And so it would not surprise me, Nick, is if the next thing we sort of hear, or maybe we don't hear, is that the Patriots quietly go to Damien Harris and offer a contract extension that is very team-friendly after he sort of has seen his mortality in, what? They're hosting Leonard Fournette? Why are they doing that? They have me and Ramondre Stevenson. Why would they ever do that? Do they want to get rid of me? And it's like, oh, well, no, Leonard Fournette went back. But here, Damien Harris, here's a $5 million per year contract extension. Are you interested in that? If he says no, the Patriots start thinking about after Damien Harris. That's sort of how things go with the Patriots. He could very well bet on himself, like we saw guys like J.C. Jackson did, where he turned down a team-friendly extension and bet on himself and wanted to get top of the market. We might see that with Harris, but there's no question that Harris's future, I think, while they would love to have him and they view him as a very good player and an up-and-coming leader and stuff like that, you have to be practical. And how much, if you have Stevenson, he's going to be your starter. You can afford to do other things. So I see this as a win-win for Fournette and also the Patriots, and we'll see how it ultimately impacts Damien Harris.
Just want to know what that visit was like. Like, did they just talk about stuff other than football? Did they go out for lunch? Did they play a game of Parcheesi? Like they knew.
Who knows if he even got out of the hotel, Nick? I don't know if you saw my column, but if people want to, I wrote a column about leverage in the NFL and about a lesson I learned in 2010 when Chad Clifton, the left tackle for the Packers, was a free agent and took a quote unquote visit to Washington to get Ted Thompson to move off what he wanted to offer Chad Clifton in a contract extension. And it's a pretty interesting story that people, I think, will open up some eyes on how things work in the NFL.
All right, rank the AFC. Let's do this. Let's look at by level. Here's how I rank them right now. Greg, I want your thoughts. I've got Cincinnati as the incumbent Super Bowl representative of the AFC. I've got them at the top of the heap. They deserve it. Joe Burrow, they've really fortified that offensive line, which was, I thought, their glaring hole. I think they're going to be better this year. Cincinnati, Buffalo, Cleveland, if Deshaun Watson plays, have no idea what's going to happen with him. But if he plays, I think the Chargers also jump up, adding J.C. Jackson, some other defensive players. I mean, that defense is really
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack. Yep. You've got Mack and you've got Jackson. You've got Derwin James. You've got Bosa. They've got tons of talent offensively. Signed Mike Williams to that extension. And then I would probably put Kansas City just out of respect. But Kansas City now, they have a hole at wide receiver 1, and they have a big hole on the edge opposite of Frank Clark. They've got some question marks now in Kansas City. But my top 5 right now on paper, this can change. It's early. Cincy, Buffalo, Cleveland with Watson, the Chargers, and the Chiefs.
Yeah, so what I did an exercise at Boston Sports Journal this weekend where, every once in a while I like to sort of recalibrate because I think that, and sort of look at rosters and where they are. Because I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, how your blue chip elite players and red players who are very good players, how they end up playing for you sort of determines how good you are and how far you can go. And so I like to take a step back and sort of look at that. And I looked at the AFC just because I wanted to see, all right, where do the Patriots really rank right now in terms of the talent on their roster? And again, this is just looking at the talent. And I also didn't look at individual offensive linemen. I basically went with, is your line good or is it average? If it's good, you're in the plus column. If you're average, and a lot of offensive lines at this point in time are average to me. Like the Patriots right now I have is average. They could be good during the season. I have no idea. I have to see the finished product. But I looked at it, and the Patriots among contenders, and I didn't even put the Colts into this, and I think it changes with Matt Ryan because I think Matt Ryan is a big upgrade for them.
Yep, I agree.
I have them 12th in the AFC in terms of talent, upper echelon talent on the roster. And I'm not factoring in coaching because we know Belichick in the past, we don't know with the new coaching alignment, how much they're going to improve the roster. We know that Belichick has done that before. He's coached them better than their talent level. So I'm not discounting that. And people shouldn't overreact to this because I do think that the Patriots obviously are banking on, and you and I have talked about it before, they are banking on some of their free agents from last year, from guys, some of their younger players, whether it's Mac Jones or Kyle Duggar. I do have Christian Barmore already in that purple chip, blue-red, purple chip area because I think he's, at least as a sub-pass rusher, he is already there. He's already in the very good category, and I think he's going to get better. I did put Kendrick Bourne in there. I put Hunter Henry. Matthew Judon. I have Jonathan Jones. He's coming back from injuries. I still kept him there. And Adrian Phillips. Those are the sort of upper echelon players I have on the Patriots roster right now. The Patriots are banking on some of their guys taking a step forward. I have no problem with that. But I don't know that. I don't know that they're going to take that leap. We'll have to see. Whether they're a contender is all going to depend on whether those guys take a leap. They could. But so that's the basis. For me, let's look at the teams that I think right now have a realistic shot at contending. The Bills and the Chiefs. The Chiefs, we'll see. This is breaking news, so we'll have to see what they do, how it affects them. I think who they draft. I think you're right, Nick, with the new draft capital. That is going to be important. I think that I was surprised when I went through this how talented the Bengals are. I didn't realize. I was surprised. So I'm going to put the Bengals there. I did not think that they were going to be in that category, but at the end of the day, they came out that way. I think the Chargers take a leap into that upper echelon. They are uber talented. I agree with you on the Browns. If Deshaun Watson plays half the season, they're probably up there. And I would put the Broncos there as well. I think the Broncos are pretty talented and with Russell Wilson. So those are sort of the contender status for me. That's the upper echelon in the AFC. I think they're all sort of in the same tier. Nobody is dominant, in my opinion. I think that the Raiders, the Ravens. I can't put the Steelers there right now with Trubisky, even though I think they have some players on their team. The Titans, I think, are there. Now the Dolphins are there. And I think that's sort of the next tier right now. And then right behind them are sort of the Patriots. I would put the Colts with Matt Ryan in that tier. And then I sort of had the Steelers and the Patriots after that, where depending on, I don't know, if Mitch Trubisky's suddenly good for the Steelers, then they could contend for a playoff spot. I think the Patriots, should certain guys take a leap, which they might, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Mac Jones, Kyle Duggar, maybe somebody at linebacker, that sort of thing, then I think they're right there. But to me, that's the way I see the AFC. I mean, I don't know how. What do you think of where I sort of had the Patriots grouped? Do you think it's fair?
Yeah, I think you're in the right region, in the right area. I mean, you could argue they could be better than 3 or 4 teams right now in the AFC. I agree with your list, though. I mean, I gave you my top 5 and my next 3 because I do think as many as 7 or 8. I talked to Mike Lombardi about this yesterday on my show. There could be as many as 7, 8 teams that could make a run in the AFC. I absolutely believe Denver's there. Vegas adds Chandler Jones. They add Devontae Adams. They trade for Rock Ya-Sin. They added Anthony Averett. They're working on that defense. Josh,
I don't even think I mentioned the Raiders. Yeah, they're in that second tier for me too. I mean, what they've done. Yeah.
You've got Renfro, Waller, Adams, Jacobs on offense with Derek Carr, Josh McDaniels play caller, Chandler Jones, Max Crosby on the edges. You've got Rock Ya-Sin and Anthony Averett. I think they'll add another corner as well. They might be looking at Stephon Gilmore, trying to drive that price down. So, yeah, and you've got the Ravens. And, I don't take the Ravens as seriously as others do because they have one playoff win with Lamar, but they've got the talent. They've got the roster. All right, let's jump to the BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day, Greg. Check them out over at BSJ. $39.99 on the annual plan. Not only do you get top-notch analysis of all the Boston pro sports, if you're a Patch junkie, which you are, membership at BSJ gives you access to a ton of video analysis Bedard does on the coach's film, direct access to him in weekly chats. Greg, you'll find a question. Which question did you find, my friend?
So Brighton811 asked, just wondering, Greg, on which side of the ball will Matt Patricia be getting it wrong next year? Any credence to the rumors it might be on the offensive side? Well done, Brighton. Well done. Yeah, from all indications, and I saw Matt Patricia at the Combine. He and I chatted a little bit, even though I wouldn't say that he was exactly forthcoming, nor do I think I'm one of his favorite people in the world. But we had a nice chat, and it was nice to catch up with him. It's been a while. Yeah, it seems like he's going to be the offensive line coach, or at least co-offensive line coach with Billy Yates, who returns. Matt Patricia has experience at that. He was an assistant offensive line coach when he first entered with the Patriots. I know a lot of people are panicking about that, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. What people need to understand is, you look at a guy like Dante Scarnecchia, who was here and a legend as an offensive line coach. Dante Scarnecchia did not enter the league as an offensive line coach. He just suddenly got given that job at some point in time, and you know what he did? He got in a car, drove out to Cincinnati to where Jeff McNally, who's a legendary offensive line coach. They started doing sort of off-season, tutoring other offensive line coaches, just talking about line play. It has now grown into the Cool Clinic, the coaches of offensive line clinic that I often go to out in Cincinnati. And basically, Scar just went out there. They said, hey, you're going to coach offensive line. And he went out there and he found the smartest guys that he could think of, and they helped teach him the offensive line, and we saw what happened. I think that Matt Patricia will do similar. I wouldn't be surprised if he's talking to Dante Scarnecchia a lot. And also, you have to understand that Billy Yates knows sort of how to teach the fundamentals and, where Patricia might be lacking, like in terms of foot placement, hand placement. How are we going to do that? The of the position. I've been under the weather a little bit, so I'm a little, but anyways, you put those two guys together, and Matt knows about leverage and other things. I don't think it's going to be an outright disaster. I'm willing to give it patience, and I don't think that, you need a master's degree to coach the offensive line. But I do think it's interesting, Nick. One thing on this is that, the Patriots didn't love Trent Brown last year. Maybe there was some sort of issue with him and Carm Bursillo, the offensive line coach, where maybe the Patriots think that they can get more out of Trent Brown with Matt Patricia and Billy Yates than what he had last year. That was just one thought I had. So, yeah, Patricia looks like he's going to be heavily involved with the offensive line, and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I'm not going to bury them for it.
Two quick things. If you bust Greg's balls about his offensive line breakdown, because it's the offensive line. And, it's nerdy. Then you have no right to crap on Matt Patricia as an O-line coach because you don't care about the offensive line. So stay out of that lane. I would also say that Tyreek Hill, we got more contract details before we wrap this up. I think it's been an interesting last 5 or 6 days in the NFL. Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed in full with what's going on with him. According to Adam Schefter, Tyreek Hill, $72.2 million, becomes fully guaranteed at the start of the 2023 league year. The other $52.535 million, fully guaranteed at the signing.
Wow.
So as long as he keeps his head above water, he gets all that guaranteed money by the beginning of next football season. That is the impact of that Deshaun Watson contract that the Cleveland Browns signed and bent over backwards and helped him back into the league with. This is what's going to happen. A lot of guaranteed money, a lot of it up front. This is changing the dynamics of NFL contracts. He's Greg Bedard. I am Nick Cattles, the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast. We'll try to keep our heads above water like Tyreek Hill and keep our eyes on the NFL because it is banana world. We'll talk to you soon. Be good, be healthy, be safe.